Welcome to a new episode of Review, and today we can see it's a bit of a special episode because this box is huge, and the reason for that is because it contains two aircraft, one from Lufthansa and one from Swiss. Now I found this box in a shop, and as you can see it says 25 euros, so it's kind of a bargain because, as you all know, Herpa Wings are quite expensive and you can easily spend 25 euros for just one plane. So I didn't hesitate and bought it straight away. Now I'm not quite sure why Herpa Wings did release this box. An educated guess is that it was released around 2005 when Lufthansa announced it would take over Swiss, or it could have been released around 2006 when Swiss joined Star Alliance. But I'm not sure. Maybe you know. If you do, let me know in the comments below. Now if we take a look at the box, we have the branding of Lufthansa and Swiss, and if we turn the box around we have a nice picture of the vertical stabilizers from Lufthansa and Swiss. We also have the original dimensions of both aircraft, and as always some additional information. So let's look inside. So here we are, the Airbus A330-300 from Lufthansa and the Airbus A340-300 from Swiss. And let's start with the Lufthansa. Now if we start looking at the tail section of this aircraft, we of course see the Lufthansa branding on the vertical stabilizer, and on the top of that we have the last two letters of the registration code. Also on the tail section of course we have the full registration code and the German flag. Now if we move to the front of the aircraft, along the fuselage we have written Lufthansa, then it tells us what aircraft type it is, and then there's written the name of the aircraft. In this case the aircraft is called after the German city of Minden. Left of the door we have the Star Alliance logo, and under the cockpit windows we have the Lufthansa branding once again. Now let us take a little break from the Lufthansa and look at the Swiss, but don't worry, we come back to the Lufthansa later. Now if we start looking at the tail section of this Airbus A340-300 from Swiss, we see of course the beautiful Swiss branding on the vertical stabilizer. Also on the tail section we do have the full registration of the aircraft. But notice how we don't have a Swiss flag anywhere near the registration. Now normally all aircraft do have the flag of the origin close to the registration. I guess in this case it's simply down to the fact that the vertical stabilizer, or the branding on the vertical stabilizer, is basically the Swiss flag. Now if we move to the front of the aircraft we see the Swiss branding along the fuselage. Now in this case the Swiss branding contains of the writing Swiss and then Switzerland written in the 4 native languages of Switzerland. But as far as I know, this is actually now the old Swiss branding, and it is currently being replaced by the new Swiss branding, which just contains of the word Swiss, which then in this case will be a bit bigger on the fuselage. Another detail we have on this aircraft is just under the cockpit windows we do have the last two letters of the registration code. Now another detail I'm actually not quite sure if we are missing. I'm talking about the Star Alliance logo. And here it comes down to when this aircraft actually was released by Herpa, and I don't know that. If it was released after 2006, this aircraft should definitely have the Star Alliance logo. If it was released before, it is actually quite alright that it doesn't, because as I said earlier, Swiss only became a member in 2006. Now moving on, if we look at the other side of the 340, we see that it has the doors to the cargo compartment. Another detail I really like on this aircraft is actually the printing of the Swiss branding on the engines themselves. But that's actually the only thing I like about the engines, because I think they look horrible. Normally they are really detailed, in this case I really don't like how they've made them. Now before we look at my personal highlight on this aircraft, let's move back to the Lufthansa. Because if we take a look at the Lufthansa, we see that this aircraft does also have the doors to the cargo compartment. And in this case I must say I'm also kind of underwhelmed about the details on the engines. Now a detail that is missing on this aircraft is the addition of Lufthansa.com on the tail section. But actually I don't really think it is missing, because I'm pretty sure that this box was released somewhere around 2005 or 6, maybe 7, and that is before Lufthansa actually made this edition. So if this theory of mine is correct, the Lufthansa.com is correctly missing on this aircraft. Now, the best detail for me on this aircraft is actually the last 2 registration letters on the landing gear. That looks quite cool. Now, before we end this episode, as promised, my highlight on the Swiss aircraft. You probably already guessed it if you've watched some of my previous videos. Yes, it is the winglet. It looks fantastic. So that's the episode for today, and in fact it is the last episode for this year, because the next 2 Wednesdays are Christmas and New Year's Eve, and I will not be uploading on those 2 days. But I will start uploading again on January the 7th, 2015. So now I can only wish you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and remember, if you enjoyed the video, to leave a like or subscribe. That would be absolutely awesome. Now I'm checking out. Thanks for watching, and see you in 2015.